Yay.
Oh, that one's already
Good.
good to go. So, as we get started, why don't you tell me a little bit about maybe your journey towards prioritizing giving in your life, um, how that's become something that's important, to you, um, and anything else you'd like to say about why giving is important to you.
Well, we had one question. What do you mean by generosity?
That is one of the questions I'm
Oh,
going to ask because I've had some fascinating answers because I've been curious what people think generosity is as well. So I'm not going to tell you. I want to hear what you think generosity is.
Do you
okay.
want us to answer that first?
Sure.
Um, I don't know. To me, generosity is giving of yourself, whatever that may mean. Combination of as in the Methodist faith, your time, your talents, and your monies. But being generous is just giving to others. And
Yeah, no matter what it is, you have to be a
I
joyful,
think I'm falling apart.
a joyful giver. Yeah.
You good?
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Say hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Can you pull it up just a little bit? There you go. Just like that.
Right that. Okay.
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's keep on talking then.
Okay.
Actually, are you on?
Mm.
No, not green. There you go.
Are you on?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
All
good.
right, now, because we can hear ourselves, I should have thought of that first.
okay.
No.
Tell me what generosity is to you again, Marcia. I'm sorry. Now we are 100% set.
And you're going to delete everything else before. I
Really?
can I can
I
hear.
think we might have a blooper reel.
Oh,
Hey,
that might not be a bad idea.
we're in.
We're in. Uh, Generosity to me is giving of your time, your talents, your monies, being generous with your time, giving back to others. Um,
Well, I think of a broader spectrum. I think generosity is just caring for people. It can be, taking a cart back a giant for an elderly lady. That's part of the time, but it's just more involved, I think, how you perceive generosity in your life.
it's the little things, each and every day that you do.
Hmm.
One of my favorite sayings you've probably heard me use before is small things done consistently in strategic places create a major impact. And I really do believe in that that's part of being generous, of giving back and doing small things every day, and it can make a world of difference.
Great. So, how did you get started in really paying attention to sort of a generous lifestyle for you?
Yeah.
Well, it started back when Marcia came back from Oklahoma. Uh, we were sitting around and we were talking about there's something missing. And I was raised Catholic. My parents were very devout. And so we started looking for churches, and we went to several. Uh, and we came here, and of course John Chadsey was the pastor, and it struck a note. And so we, you know, started coming to the church more, getting involved, small group study, and things like that. And
And
that,
about that same time, we started joining other activities just to find out what church was about. Joe had gone to church most of his life, his younger life, um, but he hadn't attended church for a couple of decades, and I had never attended church. So I didn't even know what church meant or anything about it. But I joined the choir. We started greeting. We started ushering. We started helping out with food distribution. We both joined the Living Christmas Tree. Um, we were attending prime timers. We got involved in pretty much every aspect of the church.
and then we realized that by reading the Bible and everything that we should be giving more. And but we had normal bills and all that. So it took us a couple of years to, every time we'd give more to the church, for some reason we get more back. We get a promotion or pay,
A cash
cash
award.
award, things like that. So we just kept that up, and of course, eventually we started tithing, and we have no problems. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing how we've talked about. I think in 2 Corinthians they talk about you sow generously and you reap generously, and I think that we were faithful to God. We were trying to learn the Word, trying to get immersed in the church and better understand what the church was about, what it was like having a church family, and what it means about giving your first and your best. And God was faithful to us, and so we've never really worried about anything. We always know God's got our back.
Those are great answers. You're jumping ahead too, so we're on good schedule. now that I took 5-10 minutes to get us started. So I think we've heard a little bit about what your experience with generosity. How do you think that generosity offered by the church today helps pave the road for those who come after us?
Well, I think it's about maintaining a church foundation or structure, whatever that may look like. In our case, it's a building, but we need to be generous in the maintenance of our building, the upkeep of our building, the ability to be able to host small groups and to bring people into our church and have them have a place that they can go, that they can be safe and have meetings. And so I think that the generosity is maintaining that building and that opportunity for other people that come after us.
And everything we have now is on the shoulders of parishioners of the past.
Right.
And this whole church, it was amazing that they decided to build it, back then.
Because I think there was a lot of, as we understand it, we weren't around at the time, but there was some level of discussion and debate as to whether this was the right thing for the church family to do at the time. And some of the individuals said, yes, we are going to take that step and trust in God and make it happen. And here we are. 200 years later, we're still, a major element of our community, and that's something to be very proud of.
We were here for the burning of the mortgage.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, when they paid the church off.
That was great.
How do you talk about money in your family?
We don't really talk that much about money, do we?
We did early on in our relationship.
Yeah.
We've been married almost 34 years, and we've known each other for almost 40 years. So one thing that we oftentimes talk about is that we didn't know it, but God really blessed us when we came together, that we have a lot of the same viewpoints, and particularly when it comes to finances and what we think is important. And so we talk about it. Joe was the one that actually laid out the plan on how we would tithe and how we would go about doing that, because I really wasn't. I mean, I enjoy finances, but he was the one that caused us to do it and still does today. I mean, he makes sure that we do our tithing plus we give to other areas. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what we don't really talk about it that much.
No, we're blessed. I mean, God's given us everything we could ever want.
But I mean, I remember back during the day when we had an incredibly high mortgage, paying, I don't know what, 15% or I don't know, some crazy amount at the time for our mortgage. We had car payments, we had credit card debt, and we just strategically looked at it and set up a plan of how to pay it all down, doing things that you logically hear about today, paying the highest interest down first, looking at how to, revise your payment plans and stuff so that you can bring it within the scope of your finances, and then just sticking with it, sticking with that plan. And that's similar to tithing. To me, you develop a plan and you stick with that plan. And even though there's a lot of obstacles that come your way that might make you want to say, no, I can't do it, you stick with the plan. And when it comes to giving to the church, in our case, God's been amazing that even though it's been tough at times and we questioned, can we really give this week? Can we really add that extra money that the pastor's asking for a special fund? When we've done it, as Joe said, we've been given back in turn through whatever, whether when we were working through promotions and cash awards, and that set us up for where we are today.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we notice when we look at our giving in this church today is the average age of the top 15 or so givers in this church is 66 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
How do we talk to younger people, children or young adults, about how we give? What would you have told to young Joe and young Marcia who weren't giving a whole lot yet, in encouraging others to give?
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of the problem is a lot of the kids today don't have families to go to church. They're not trained or taught to give to the church. How do you get young teenagers and young adults with small families starting out to give more? That's a tough one. It really is. As we know, society is thinking more about individual selves than the church or anything else for that matter.
I think I would tell them to trust in the Lord. Get into a small group. Start talking about that. And I know that's one of the things that most small groups that I've been in don't want to talk about. It just seems like it's taboo. Even the pastors typically don't want to talk about it. But it is something that I think that is an important subject. And then small groups that I've been in, when we have talked about giving back, not necessarily tithing, but where do you start? I think you start small. And for me, it was taking the baby steps that we took of starting slowly and recognizing, yeah, we can give that $100, that $200, that $300. And before long, we were realizing, wait a minute, we're not missing that money, but what we're doing is in some cases, like for myself, I would stop and get a Starbucks every morning on my way to work. Oftentimes I'd stop and get a cup of coffee in the afternoon when I'd be attending meetings in D.C. and on my way back to my office. And I said, you know what, do I really need that? Could I do with a grande versus a venti? So I mean, you start with small steps, and then eventually I'd say, you know what, I can bring my coffee in the morning. That's a heck of a lot cheaper than stopping at Starbucks, not to mention the half hour it took me to stop, pick it up, and get back in my car and get to work. I could sleep in an extra 30 minutes, and I had hot coffee as soon as I got in the car. So I ended up getting a bonus, and yet I was able to save those monies. And it may not seem like a lot, but you start talking about, $3 to $5 every day, and oftentimes a lot more if you're having 2 or 3 cups a day. It adds up, and just those small things every day do make a difference.
I think most people should realize that they can live on another 90%. 10% off the top isn't that much money. I mean, it's all percentage. No matter how much you make, it's just 10% they constantly say is tithing, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
Yeah.
How does your relationship with God affect how you earn and save money?
I don't know. I guess it's there again. It started with my parents. were never rich by any stretch. Um, Mom was stay home till we got older, and then she went to work. But we always, we never had a lot of money, but we had a lot of love, and and have God in your family. That's more important than anything. Yeah.
What do you think?
Ask the question again.
So, in Wesleyan terms, we sort of think of finances as sort of three-sided. John Wesley would say, you earn all you can, you save all you can, and you give all you can. And
Right.
when we talk about generosity, we're thinking about giving all you can. And as a church, we want to be fully cognizant of this call that we are also to be responsible with how we earn our money, and we're called to be responsible with how we save our money, or how our money gets saved.
Right.
In Wesley's day, they didn't really have 401ks or anything like that. What he meant by saving was thrift.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, so, what do we think about those two pieces of how we handle our finances?
Well, I think it just shows that you have to have a balance. You know what your requirements are, but everything can't be just for you. You can be very, um, what, greedy, and that's part of the problem, I guess. But I always like that saying because it's true. I mean, especially to give as much as you can.
Well, I think for me, when we became members of the church and I was baptized, I took the commitment very, very seriously and started to try to learn as much as I could. And I had a lot to catch up on because I hadn't been involved in the church.
Because you weren't tainted.
Well, that might be true, but I really didn't know. And a side story, um, I I thought it was so incredible. I was in different Bible studies and chatting, and they would talk about like Jonah and the whale or Daniel and the lion's den, and I thought they were cartoon. I never realized, I mean, I know that sounds freaky, but I never realized that that came out of the Bible because I had never been taught. And now I see that as kind of sad. But one of the things that I think is so very important is that for me it used to be about status, about having the material things and being able to demonstrate that I had arrived. And I had, when I was working, I had a very influential position, and I had to have all the accoutrements that went along with it. I had to have the nice car, the Lexus. I had to have all the appropriate clothing. I had to have all those things. And as I learned more about what God has in store for you and what God offers us, I realized all those things were really just all about me and weren't important. And you know what? My little Mazda or our Honda get us around just as well. Matter of fact, maybe it's even better than the Lexus I used to drive. I still like nice clothes, but I don't go out and go crazy like I used to. And it's really just trying to start to balance your life, just like the coffee, not having the coffee every morning and making it at home, looking at saying, do I really need that new car? Do I really need that bigger house? That to me is part of where you have to kind of start doing a self-examination.
You're absolutely right. Katie, when she started working, because she's working in her first full-time job she's ever had.
Uh,
She's had like a bunch of different jobs before, but never making what she does now.
yeah,
And it was fascinating because we were going through our budget last month and reconfiguring it because we're finally caught up on some of the bills that we had, and we're like, we spent $150 on Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks last month.
yeah. Well, you
So we bought a Mr. Coffee
yeah.
to go along with our Keurig.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Joe said we really didn't do much, but I remember. See, we got to go back 30 years of what we did early on in our relationship. We used to lay out our finances, and talk about, okay, this is what we're paying for mortgage, this is what we're paying for
We had a regular spreadsheet. Yeah.
yeah, but we would like dog grooming, dry cleaning. I mean, just all the things that you can imagine. Your electric bills. I mean, each and everything, gas, and we laid that out. And when you do that, that's really telling. You know, just like what you're pointing out, that you start saying, wow, I'm spending this much money for that, and do I really need to be doing that, or could I pare that down a little bit, and how could I be more generous with that in another way? Is it really important that I be spending those monies in that way, or could I spend it in a different way?
Absolutely. So that's week one. We're going to fly through the other 2 weeks.
Okay.
Y'all are already hitting a lot of the answers.
Well, we thought week one was the one where you didn't have any answers for.
Yeah.
This is great so far. What motivates you to support the ministries at our church?
The love of God.
Yeah, I think that's pure and simple.
Trying to
Really.
be Jesus-like.
Yeah, yeah. I think we love God. We want to give back. Um, God's been generous to us in our life, and we want to give back to the church, and we want to support the church for our community for the generations to come.
So I've been dying to ask this question since y'all began your sort of story of how you got to where you are. What do you think the Bible says about how we should use our money?
Wisely.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, be a, what was this phrase? God loves a cheerful giver. I like that one. And like Marcia's already mentioned, whoever sows generously receives generously.
Mhm.
And that's been proven to us. So,
I think you need to be intentional about how you spend your money, and I think you need to have integrity when you make decisions about how you're going to spend or give your money. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Carl, but but that's what, I think that if you're intentional and you know that in your heart of hearts that you are sharing your money, giving your money, spending your money for the things that are going to make a positive impact on your life today and potentially have a positive influence on somebody else tomorrow, then that's how I feel you need to move forward in your spending.
everything on this earth will go away. Everything that's important is in heaven. So put your money where your heart is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's one. I won't be able to quote it, but just what you said. I love that verse that where your money is, your heart is, or
Where your treasure is, your heart will be also.
Yeah,
yes, where
yeah.
your treasure is, your heart will
Also,
also
where your
be.
heart is, your treasure will be also.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
because I think that's so true. So it's as Joe said, it's being generous in a lot of different ways. Whether I see Joe do this all the time, where he will help somebody like an elderly person or a young mom who has a cart, and he'll say, "Hey, can I take your cart up to the store?" That may not seem like a big deal, but it just makes my heart melt every time I see him do that because it's just a sweet, thoughtful, caring act. And I think if we carried that throughout our life, that we would all be in a better place, and the world would be a happier place to live.
Where in the world besides in our church, because we talked about the world being a better place to live, where in the world besides our church is there evidence of the ministry of Warrenton UMC?
Well, all the mission work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
food distribution. I think the living Christmas tree. I think a lot of the things that we've started in the last couple of years at the community center, those are all evidence. I loved it the first year Tim came. he and another pastor in our community went down to Main Street on Ash Wednesday and were giving ashes to people on Main Street. And I said, that's a little bit of heaven here on earth. You know, doing those little things to show the love of God and the love of our church to the community in a non-traditional way.
How do you think generosity helps to shape you into the person God wants you to be?
Well, in my current small group, we're talking about we over me. And I believe that that is what it's really about. We should be looking at we, our church family, we, our community, versus always looking at me.
And how does somebody become associated with that small group?
Oh, with the Women's Bible Study on Thursday
Tell us
morning.
all about the women's Bible study.
It's a great group.
Find a time to plug that.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's Thursday morning, starts at 10. We're usually over by 11, 11:30, and we've got a great group of women, all ages, some young moms, all the way up to 80-ish that are in our group. So we've got a really diverse group, and uh, we bring a lot of knowledge, experience, and it's a confidential group where we know what's said within the group stays within the group, and we've become trusted friends, and we've learned a lot together, and we've grown a lot in our faith.
Great.
You want to plug the men's group? You can plug.
It's getting too big.
It's getting too big. Yeah, I was gonna.
A lot of seats.
Yeah. Well, we've
Yeah,
had that
15 is
same
fine.
issue a couple of times, like and we ebb and flow, but we've had as many as like 16 to 18 in our group. And you're right. I mean, when you get to that level, it's a little bit too much.
We might talk about breaking it, and maybe Carl will take Tuesdays and Tim will take Wednesdays. We'll have to see how
Yeah. I was wondering about that when.
whether some of our participants are open to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much planning and praying do you put into your decisions about giving?
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Gosh.
more lately than we have been, because because of the studying, and we've been. I forget what we've been reading, but they were saying every time you make any decision, you should pray about it.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to do that more, and um, it's too easy to just say, "Well, God will take care of it."
Yeah.
You gotta ask Him, like Marcia keeps saying, you gotta ask Him directly what you want. So,
I
I'm,
find this to be a really difficult question for people who give and are used to giving, but also to people who don't give at all.
oh yeah,
Well, we've had several really major things that we've been wanting to do. I mean, I sound like a broken record in a way. We've been looking for a home, but we're looking for that perfect home. But we've been saving for that, and we've been, or at least I've been hesitant to touch savings because if that home does appear, we want to be in a position that we can put the down payment down on it and still be able to keep our current home and then move into the new home and then sell our current home. So we've kind of had a plan, and we have been praying about that, what that might look like. And I just figure since it hasn't happened, it's God's will is for us not to move at this point. But I think we do pray about all of that. I mean, and particularly like when we're coming up to the stewardship campaign and we're asked to fill out the cards. We pray for like a week plus of going through what do we want to give. How, this would be what if we tithe. Can we give more than that? So we do pray about that a lot.
and it's not easy tithing anymore because when you have 100 sheep, giving up 10 is not a big deal. I'm sure it was, but nowadays with all the different interests you get and finding out where your income is level. So we just look at the taxes, and look at the top of the taxes and go from there. I mean, it drives
Yeah.
you crazy.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story, not for the tape, but when my father passed away, and we got an inheritance from Dad, I went to Pastor John, and I said, John, I don't know what to do. We've received this inheritance from my dad. It wasn't that large of an amount, but I said, do we give 10% of that to the church? And he was just dumbfounded. He didn't know how to answer that question. And I thought, well, I would expect the pastor to know how to respond to that. We ended up,
John hated finance.
he wouldn't talk about that. But I thought that was so funny because I thought, of all people, you should know whether we should be giving this or not. And I didn't know because is that considered part of your income? Is that, and it was just kind of one of those weird scenarios.
Yeah, I would have said yes.
Yes. Well, we did.
Yeah,
We did, but he never really he never responded to me.
I'll preach about something.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Because we all have our stories about how we really grew in our generosity. What are some obstacles you found that make it hard to give as much as you would like? And can you remember a time when you made a commitment to grow in your generosity?
Well, we're blessed that physically we're okay. I can imagine some people have, hospital bills and things like that can be very, demanding compared to giving. Um, I don't know.
Well,
There's a lot of obstacles, I guess.
I obstacles. You're right. When you've been giving for a long time, it's hard to say that you have obstacles anymore because you kind of work through those. But I guess at the time that when we first started thinking about giving more money, the obstacles that we had were our mortgage, our car payments, credit card debt, and just our lifestyle at the time, travel, and well, what do we, clearly we thought we had to give up something to be able to do that because that would be like one additional bill, and we didn't have the money in our income for that one additional bill. We were pretty much maxed out, and that's when we started looking at our overall finances and actually assessing what we were doing and how we were doing it, and that's how we started saying, no, we can be more generous. We just need to give up some of those things that really aren't that important.
So I think you just hit on something really important there. And one of the obstacles I think maybe towards turning giving into generosity is seeing our offerings as a bill. How do you go from seeing what you give to God as a bill to something that you're excited to give, like being a cheerful giver, like you said?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it depends on what you're getting for your money. We believe that we're going to get a lot back for our money, and we already have on this earth. But hopefully, there's more later on. Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to give our first and our best. And to me, if we don't take that first and best off the top, it doesn't make sense. I mean, there's just no rational reason that you wouldn't do that. And is it easy? No, it's not always easy to do that. But once you make a commitment to do it, you may not dive in and go from zero to tithing or $10 a week to tithing. But if you develop a plan and say, maybe like a bill, I don't know if that's what keeps you on track, then I would say yes, consider it a bill. But it isn't a bill because you are getting back so much.
Well, I think maybe it's one of those things where over time you grow into becoming sort of excited about what you give.
Well, you see what it's doing within the church. The money that you're giving, how it's
Excuse me.
how it's making a difference in God's kingdom. You see how others in the church are getting excited about being part of the church family. You see the joy that walks through the door when you greet somebody. You see people that are being baptized, particularly baptized for me at an older age, because I know that they've gone through a lot of struggles to get to that point. When a child's baptized, the mother and father are committing their child, but when you have somebody that's older, or when we have the confirmands that are coming forward, they've thought about it, and they understand, at least at that age, in part, what they're doing. When you have an adult that's coming forward, you say, my goodness, they've really thought through what that means and the commitment they're making in their life. And that, to me, is some of the joy that you get back by seeing the joy on the face of others.
So let's talk about that thinking through, because a lot of times giving feels sacrificial, especially when we first start giving. Can you think of a time when giving felt sacrificial for you?
I don't think so. We worked into it pretty good, so it wasn't seemed like it was going to be a sacrifice.
Well, um, hmm. I would I would say that when we were talking about the organ,
Mm.
um, we believed that that could make a difference in our community. We still do. And we're looking forward to the time that we have all the elements of the organ in place. But at that point in time, um, we were asked to give additional monies to support the organ, and they were looking for an incredible dollar amount. And we stretched ourselves to give extra money to support that. The other example I would give is when we were, it didn't occur, but in the building campaign, when we had a building campaign, we were asked to give above and beyond what we were tithing at the time to support the new building campaign. And we looked at each other and like, oh no, you got to be kidding. There's no way we could afford to do that. And yet we talked about it, we prayed about it, and we came up with a dollar figure, and we said we'll give this above and beyond what we're giving now to support this, because we do see this as the future of our church and the community. And we did that faithfully until, of course, they decided to, to disband that whole project because of the economy and other things that happened. So I don't know. Those were hard times. For us, or at least I remember them as being difficult decisions, because it's like, you mean I can't get the new outfit? you know, we're giving to the church and I can't get the new outfit. you know.
Um,
This has been
how do
yeah.
sorry.
This has been going on since Cain and Abel. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that story, it begins as a story about generosity.
yeah. It sure does, and given the proper, yeah.
Is, how do you think our church could be more generous? Or how do you think God is calling our church to be more generous?
I think Tim's on the right track. What he's doing with the community and everything. I think that's the first step. Get, go to the community and get involved.
I'll make sure to put that in the video
Okay.
for him to say.
I think the other area that we need to explore, and I know that it's part of the NLI, is how do we better utilize our property? Because we've got a lot of land here. It's in, prime real estate, and there's a lot of needs in our community. We just need to be real clear about what those needs are, and not only today, but in 10, 20 years from now, and then build out something that's going to help meet those needs. And I'm not sure what that looks like. I've got ideas, but it could be much different than what my ideas are. But I think that there's a lot of needs in our community for low-cost housing, for places for teens and youth to gather, and we're in an ideal location and have the property where we could build such a establishment, a community here. So I think that there are things that we should be doing long term. And short term, I think we need to somehow get more out in the community than what we're doing. I know you do a lot of walking and talking to people, but I think that getting out and getting our message out, and sometimes you just have to you have to build one person at a time, and it would be nice if you could just bring in the masses all at once, but that, realistically, I don't believe that's going to happen. And I think it's building that relationship one at a time and getting out into the community, speaking in the community. I don't think that we do enough of that. Um, I see the same issue in my work with the Salvation Army, where people don't understand what's going on within the Salvation Army. And they've got a good message, but they don't do well in communicating it. And we need to have that elevator pitch or whatever, that we all as a church are going out and communicating to the community.
One last question, and then I'll give you all the final word because we got chapel in here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
How do you celebrate what you've been able to give? And with Katie and I, when we get our giving statement at the end of the year, I know a lot of times I am absolutely surprised by how much we've been able to give. It's like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I feel really, really good till I go to my tax guy and he says, Carl, you need to make way more and give way more. But it's really exciting to be able to see sort of that number I've given at the end of the year and celebrate that. How do you celebrate, or how do you through your giving?
It's just a genuine feeling of doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And just
I'd agree, though, that doing your taxes, when you look at your tax statements and you say, my goodness, we would be paying a lot more money if we weren't as generous. Maybe that is a point of celebration, but that isn't really it. I mean, honestly, that's an acknowledgement, kind of a tangible acknowledgement that, yes, your generosity ended up helping somebody and you didn't end up having to pay a higher bill. But that really isn't it. I mean, honestly, it's just the joy in giving. And I don't think it's not once a year for us. I think it's we give now every month. We used to give every week, and but now we give once a month. And I think it's a little bit of kind of almost pride when Joe puts the money into the offering plate at the beginning of the month. It's like, I know that money is going to do something that's incredible. I don't know what it is, but it's going to make a difference. And that makes me happy.
And as you know, I'm a counter now. And it just gives me a warm feeling when I'm going through the checks and you see $400 and $500. Just even the $5, really.
Because people are starting to get it.
Yeah.
That they're understanding that the generosity to the church isn't about, as I think Carl has said a week or so ago, it's not about keeping the lights on. It's about giving back and making a difference.
Great. So, I guess I said I'd give you the last word, but one more question before that. How would you tell somebody else that generosity is important and they should take part?
I guess like reiterating our story, how it affected us, not just monetarily, but psychologically. Knowing that giving to God, it works. And like Marcia said, God's got our back, and He's going to take care of us if we, honor Him. So,
It's back to trusting and obeying.
yeah. That's a song, right? Trust and obey. Yeah.
You could
Last
sing.
Word? Last word?
It was
Have a
great
final
seeing
word
you.
for us?
It was
Yeah.
great seeing you.
Great to sit down and talk about all this.
So how many people are you interviewing?
I think there's about 6 interviews.
Oh,
So probably about 8 or 9 people overall.
Oh, good. good.
Is this being used during the service
It'll be used
or
during discipleship
discipleship
hour. Some of
hour?
the questions you're asking,
Uh-huh.
those will be sort of discussion questions for discipleship hour, and so our plan is for them to hear what y'all say first, and then those will sort of be primers for other people.
Oh, good.
So they're ready to talk around their tables about what you said is a difficult subject. This is sort of the equivalent of the sex talk for churches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 We don't want to talk about it, but
Mm-hmm.
I've never been all that bashful about talking about money in churches.
That's
I grew
good,
up with a Korean
yeah.
pastor.
Ah.
And if you know anything about the Korean church, I mean, they're not afraid to talk about money.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really afraid to talk about money.
I was talking to Tim yesterday, and he was talking about like Mike Slaughter and his church. And I said, "Well, Tim, how did he do it?" And he said, "Well, he encouraged everyone that came and became a member of the church or started attending for them to tithe." But I thought, well, I get that, but how do you do that? That to me is the secret. How do you transition someone from walking in the door and giving the $1 a week or the $5 or the $20, and you know that, or you believe, you hope that they are making more than that, and that is not their tithe. But I mean, even people that I know that are fairly well financially, because I know their business. I see, because I usher, Joe and I both do occasionally, and we see that they're dropping $10 and I'm not being judgmental. I don't mean that, but I'm thinking, is what's missing? Where's the connection for them, or the lack of connection?
And I think some of it is they've never been taught it as a value.
Yeah.
It has not been a value to a lot of people.
Well, I wasn't taught it as a value.
I like the church that demands to see your tax return.
Yeah, there are churches that do that.
Yeah, oh, yes.
What the
I think we're probably somewhere in the middle.
the Mormons?
No,
that?
it's
No?
the Baptist church here in Warrenton.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oops.
Y'all can come in.
I'll let you turn these off.